Okay. Right. So let's talk to me a little bit about how it works. I mean, is it the same as our other frameworks?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So in terms of how the framework operates, you can either do a further competition, a mini competition between the contractors on that particular lot, or you can also do a direct award. We have also brought in, I should say, going back to the structure question, I missed out. Sorry, we have brought in the core and the reserve suppliers on there as well. So if you go down the further competition route, you will have a client would have a minimum requirement for a number of tenderers. If we didn't meet that from the core suppliers, we might potentially bring in the reserves as well.
Flexibility then. So,
exactly.
So really, depending on how the market responds to the client's requirements, we've got all of that flexibility built in, and that's a big advantage for our frameworks, isn't it? Having that reserve list.
Yeah. So having 6 contractors on the core list still allows there to be a suitable amount of competition, but it's not overcrowded as to discourage people from bidding. It's still competitive, but having that reserve list does mean if we don't meet the requirement from the core, we can bring in those reserve contractors as required.
Okay.
In terms of the further competition, how it works, we can, there's the single stage route or there's the 2-stage route. Typically what we've seen so far in civils and infrastructure is the 2-stage route is a lot more popular, just because it enables that early contractor involvement and to work under PCSA where there's still design elements needed, and it allows for a lot of value engineering as well. And then further competition aside, you can also direct award, as I've mentioned. Direct award works the same on the framework, regardless of whether you're a core contractor or a reserve. That doesn't impact. So that ability for a contractor to go out, first and foremost, selling themselves, and then Pagabo as a route to accessing them works the same, regardless of whether you're a core or reserve contractor.
Okay, so I mean, direct award, it's really useful for sort of those urgent requirements or very specific ones, or we're suffering at the moment with a lot of cost inflation. We've had sort of a past 12 months or so of that. Having that early contractor involvement can help very often. I guess instead of, I think some people thinking maybe the ECR, the early contractor involvement, might not be as competitive. Do you believe it is a competitive route?
I definitely believe so, yeah. I think the projects that go through civils and infrastructure are very complex by the nature of what they do and very high value. So I think accessing a contractor via a direct award is a much more collaborative way of working. There might be design elements that still need working on, which can be done collaboratively. There's more opportunities for value engineering, presenting alternative ways of working and design methodology. But also I think the savings in terms of cost and time that can be achieved through a direct award in terms of delivering a project to budget and on time are probably increased, and I think those potential savings would outweigh a race to the bottom line as such, if you were going through a further competition. And also don't forget the contractor OH&P's overheads and profit are fixed on the framework as well.
Right.
And those are based on a certain amount of spend going through the framework and are probably a lot more competitive than what you'd get on the open market as a consequence.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, because what we're probably seeing now, frameworks, compared to say 10 years ago where most of a contractor's business was coming through bidding, frameworks are now really the way forward. And frameworks and having that competitive element and making sure the prices are very good is great for the clients. But I suppose the flip side for the contractor is they're getting a reasonably strong pipeline coming through. So it's actually helping everybody. So hopefully it's keeping costs down for the client, is it, in the long run?
I would say so, yeah. And I think from a contractor perspective as well, I think the contractors like to have that early input. They like to be involved in that design process because that's where they see themselves adding the most value.
Yeah, I always say the best football teams are not the ones who just play together, they're the ones who train together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's early contractor involvement in that sense.
Yeah.